It's that time of year again where we look at the Champions League. Yes, the Champions League is finally returning with the round of 16 after the pretty interesting group stages, I must say. So yeah, these are my Champions League round of 16 predictions. I'm going to start off with this week's Tuesday fixtures. I'm going to start off looking at FC Copenhagen versus Manchester City. FC Copenhagen, I think, surprised everyone as they progressed through what was a pretty tough group, seeing off the likes of Galatasaray and City's rivals Manchester United. It was a very impressive performance from the reigning Dutch champions, and to be honest, I didn't think they'd go through, but they did. Very surprisingly, they grabbed a big result against Manchester United and dealt with Galatasaray as well, so fair play. Manchester City are the reigning champions of both Europe and England, and will be hoping that they can become the first English side to successfully defend their crown since Nottingham Forest way back in 1980. I can't claim to be an expert on Danish football. I've not watched Copenhagen outside of Europe, but they do currently find themselves in third in the Danish league, which is okay, I guess. It doesn't look like they're on the best run of form at the moment, though, which is not what you want to be on when you're about to face Manchester City. I do watch Manchester City, though, and unfortunately for the Danes, they're in a very good run of form at the moment and are looking pretty unstoppable as well. They currently find themselves in second, keeping pace with Liverpool and Arsenal in the title race. They had a little stumble earlier on in the season, but they've put that behind them and now on a brilliant run of form with pretty much all their first team players back in action. It's a very tough draw for Copenhagen, but given what I've seen, Manchester City should be the ones progressing through to the next round. The Danes could throw up a few issues, maybe, but I can't really see them doing that. I don't think they'll have much at all to pressure City with, so unfortunately for the Danes, I'm backing Manchester City in this one. I think they're going to go all the way once again, but hey, you did well to get through to the round of 16. That is still impressive. And then we move on to RB Leipzig versus Real Madrid. It's last season's third place German outfit play the Spanish runners-up in what is a repeat of last season's group stage, where both teams won their respective home ties. Real went on to top that group, with Leipzig finishing runners-up, but both teams did go on to be knocked out by eventual winners Manchester City. But since then, both teams have had very different trajectories, and Leipzig currently find themselves in 5th in the Bundesliga, while Real Madrid top La Liga, but are under some heavy pressure from Girona. Both sides have changed massively since their last meeting, with the 3 Leipzig goal scorers from when the sides met in Germany all departing the club. They do have Xavi Simons at their disposal though, who's been performing well this season, with Openda and Šeško also playing well in attack. Openda has especially been really good. I think he's on like 16 goals or something in the Bundesliga at the moment, so fair play. He came in from Lons, who had their brilliant campaign last season. He's hit the ground running. But Leipzig's real issue is their defence, as they rarely keep a clean sheet, and their recent form is not great either. Real Madrid have been suffering from injuries for quite a bit this season, with the likes of Courtois, Alaba and Militao all set to miss out, and most recently, and probably most importantly, Jude Bellingham, who is currently their top scorer. All big misses for Real, but they've got a very solid squad that can deal with those losses, not fully replace them, but make it so their impact is felt less, if you get what I'm saying. Like, they've got players who can fill in, maybe not perform to the likes of Bellingham or Courtois, but they can make do, is what I'm trying to say here. Leipzig have only made it out of the round of 16 once, and that was back in 2020, so it's not looking good for them in that regard either. But yeah, both teams' defences are not looking great, so I'm sure we can expect some goals, but I ultimately back in Real in this clash. They have the better squad, and that's even despite those injuries. While it's not going to be easy for either side, I do think Real should be able to see off the German side and ultimately progress. I don't think they'll win the Champions League this season. Just looking at their squad, how it is, you know, obviously when Bellingham's back, they're going to be a lot better, but I just can't see them winning the Champions League this season. I don't think they've got it in them, personally. I mean, they could surprise me and go all the way, but I doubt it. And then we on to the Wednesday fixtures, and Paris Saint-Germain versus Real Sociedad. The reigning champions of France will face the previous season's 4th placed Liga side in Real Sociedad. Both teams have had interesting European campaigns so far. Sociedad unexpectedly topped their group while PSG finished in 2nd. Honestly, they looked like they could have been knocked out throughout that final match day. I remember watching that group with some great interest because, you know, Newcastle, first time back in the Champions League in quite a while, so wanted to see how they were doing. And at one point, it looked like PSG were going to get knocked out, but they might just squeak through, and here they are in the round of 16. But honestly, PSG haven't been brilliant this season under Enrique. However, they do have an 11-point lead at the top of Ligue 1. This is his first season in charge of PSG, so there's bound to be a few teething issues. But all in all, they've not been too good despite their lead at the top of the league. But it's Ligue 1, it's PSG's league, realistically. Like, who else is going to win that? Despite that lead, though, performances haven't been confidence-inspiring. Mbappe is still at the club despite the thousands of rumours abound regarding his future and where he'll go next. Until the summer, he's going to continue to be that attacking superpower for the French outfit. Will he go to Real? Will he stay at PSG? Will he come to the Premier League? Who knows? Let's be real, he's probably going to stay at PSG. I can't see him go to Real Madrid, but he should probably leave PSG, let's be real. Their attacking output has dropped off since Messi and Neymar departed. Who would have guessed? But they still get the job done, just to a lot lesser of an extent. Real Sociedad boasted the best defence of the entire group stage, being the foundation for their very, very successful European campaign. They weren't exactly free scoring, but do have solid attacking options with the likes of Oyarzabal, Zubimendi and Kubo at their disposal. However, Oyarzabal could miss out through injury, and I know I'm not saying his name right, please don't shoot me. And that further adds to Real Sociedad's injury woes, as they're going through a bit of an injury crisis at the moment. Well, maybe not a crisis, but they've got quite a few players out, let's be real. This is a tough one to call. Sociedad successfully nullified Inter Milan when they met in the group and generally have a very solid defensive setup and will look to neutralise the French side too. PSG are also cursed in Europe, so that will always go against them as well. They do have Mbappe though, and he is like a cheat code, so it's going to be a very, very tall order for Real Sociedad's defence to lock him up. It's one of the toughest matchups to call out of this whole round of 16, but I do just think PSG have it. It could very easily be Sociedad, don't get me wrong. They have a very, very solid shot at progressing onto the next round, but I think PSG are just a stepping stone too far for them at the moment. But I'd love for them to go on a little European run. Who doesn't like Sociedad, man? You can't not like them, in my opinion. And then we move on to Lazio versus Bayern Munich. It's last season's Serie A runners-up will play the reigning German champions as Lazio have drawn Bayern Munich. Both teams have experienced a drop-off from last season, but Lazio's fall has been much bigger than Bayern's. The Italian side has dropped down to 8th, whereas Bayern find themselves in 2nd, challenging Leverkusen for the title. Come on Leverkusen, you gotta do it, man. It can't be Leverkusen forever, please. Lazio finished runners-up in their group where they put some good performances and even their keeper scored an important equaliser. That was a very fun group to watch. You know, Celtic, Feyenoord, Lazio and I think it was Atletico Madrid. Very fun group. Yeah, like I said, Lazio's keeper scored an equaliser, and that was pretty mental. Despite their inconsistent form, though, they are in the Coppa Italia as well, making it through to the semi-finals, and I think they play Juventus, which will be a very tough match for them, but that happens after this clash, so it doesn't really matter. The main issue that Lazio have, though, is that they are struggling for goals, as they've only scored 28 in the league so far. Their main man, Immobile, has only scored 8 this season, or 9 in all competitions, with quite a few of those coming from the penalty spot. Bayern have been a mixed bag this season as well, by their own high standards. Tuchel has gotten them playing well and they generally look good, but do still find themselves trailing Leverkusen by 5 points after losing to the North Rhine-Westphalia outfit this past weekend, if you're watching this when this video comes out. Bayern easily topped their group though, only dropping points in a single match. And Harry Kane has been enjoying a very fruitful start to life in Germany, scoring 28 goals in all competitions, which is the same amount as Lazio have in Serie A. That has been massively helped by Leroy Sané feeding the Englishman very well. I think they've got like 32 goals between them or something crazy like that. The Sané to Kane pipeline is thriving, but does at points look like the only way the German outfit are going to score, so they might need to work on that a bit. Lazio struggle for goals, and Bayern seem to score them for fun. So it's really not looking good for the Italians. And I do see Bayern Munich overcoming them without much trouble. They could throw up a little shock maybe in Italy, but overall, I think Bayern Munich have got this. Like I said, Tuchel has gotten Bayern ticking, and it's their own extremely high standards that sees them as a mixed bag, because realistically they're performing very well. On a points per game basis, 9 out of 10 seasons they would win the Bundesliga title. They could still win this one as well. It's just Leverkusen are playing really well at the moment, so you can't really fault Bayern Munich because they're still playing well. I'm backing the German Giants to win this clash. And then we go on to next week's Tuesday fixtures and PSV Eindhoven versus Borussia Dortmund. The Eredivisie runners-up last season and current league leaders PSV face Bundesliga runners-up and current 4th placed outfit Dortmund in what looks like a pretty even matchup. PSV have been dominant domestically this season, currently unbeaten in the league and have a 10-point gap between them and 2nd placed Feyenoord, scoring 68 goals and only conceding 10. That is a phenomenal record for them so far this season, and it's all down to former Dortmund manager Peter Bosz. He's been absolutely cooking in the Netherlands. He was there originally, did well, went to Dortmund, didn't do so well, and now he's back in the Netherlands and he's cooking once again. Now he's been in France as well, but that doesn't matter. He's been doing so well that they've only experienced 2 losses this season. Once in the Cup and once in the Champions League. But that match was to Arsenal, so it's understandable because they are cooking as well right now. Luke de Jong has been cooking this season, scoring 26 goals so far. I think it's his best return yet as a professional footballer, so very impressive for him. Bakayoko has also been playing very well, a real handful for opposition players, and caused a lot of threat down those flanks. Dortmund haven't been enjoying as much success though, as they're going through a period of inconsistency. BVB are undefeated in 8 matches, winning 4 and drawing 4, putting up some really solid defensive performances throughout. This time though, it's their attack which has been more problematic. It hasn't been the greatest so far, but has shown glimpses of improvement recently, with Fulkrug coming into some good form. Not the form he was at Werder Bremen, but he's getting there. I think he scored a hat-trick in one of his previous matches, one of the last matches, so something's cooking there. That's all I can say. Dortmund also welcomed back Sancho, and they welcomed back on loan for the rest of the season. However, he's not exactly hit the ground running, only chipping in with 1 assist so far. But after not playing competitive football for most of the season, you can't blame him for being a bit rusty. He looks a lot happier, so fair play. Hala will also be back after a brilliant AFCON campaign. What a story from him, by the way. From battling cancer to scoring the winning goal for the Ivory Coast is just insane. So I'm really chuffed for him as well. Dortmund did well to top what was a very tough group. That was ahead of the likes of PSG and AC Milan, who haven't exactly impressed this season, but they still did well to top what was a tough group. So fair enough. A lot of people were calling it the group of death. So topping that, you're doing something right. Ultimately, I think PSV, in the brilliant form they're in, will have what it takes to overcome this Dortmund side. They'll be full of confidence, in some brilliant form, and they're just playing some brilliant football under Bosch, and I think he'll come back to haunt Dortmund. It should be a fun matchup either way. I'm expecting a lot of goals, mostly from PSV, but should be a very interesting performance. Like I said, Dortmund's defence has gotten better recently, but PSV are really free scoring at the moment, so it could be anyone's game. Ultimately, I'm backing PSV for this one. And then move on to Inter Milan versus Atletico Madrid. Inter Milan currently find themselves top of Serie A after finishing 3rd last season, and they face current 4th placed outfit Atletico Madrid. Inter Milan finished 2nd in their group as they were pipped to the top spot by Real Sociedad, 3-goal difference. Atleti enjoyed a much better group stage as they topped their group without losing a single game. That's partly down to their brilliant attacking force that is being powered by Griezmann and Morata, and to a lesser extent Memphis Depay, who has recently started to score some goals, which is what you want from your striker. Overall, Simeone has got the squad playing well once again, and despite some domestic hiccups, have been playing pretty well this season. Inter went all the way to the final last season and still remain one of the strongest sides in Europe, but they've looked a bit better this season as well. Hakan Çalhanoğlu has been phenomenal for Inter so far this season, chipping with 9 goals, and 7 of those are penalties, which is crazy. His distribution has been a brilliant weapon for Inter as he can sprint attacks from deep, and Inter have utilised that skill to great effect. Lautaro Martinez also continues to top their goal scoring charts, and that's been helped by his new strike partner Marcus Thuram, who has started into the attack wonderfully. At the time of writing, Inter have only lost twice all season. That's once in the league and once in the cup. So it's a brilliant run of form and has given them a 7-point gap at the top of the league. These are 2 fine-tuned attacking machines ready to go all out, so hopefully that makes for a very exciting matchup. It's going to be a tough clash for either side, but Inzaghi does have a brilliant cup record up his sleeve to further boost things for his Inter side. Again, should be a very exciting clash, and I have Inter to round the victors. I can just see them going far in this campaign once again. Maybe it's a City-Inter final again, but either way, I think Inter Milan are definitely the better side here, and I have them progressing. I'm expecting a nice, fun matchup between these 2 teams because they are very good at the moment, but I do think Inter Milan are just the better side. And then finally, next week's Wednesday fixtures, and we start off with FC Porto versus Arsenal. It's last season's Portuguese runners-up facing last season's English runners-up, as FC Porto have drawn Arsenal. Porto shouldn't be slept on, but they've not exactly been flying domestically, as their form has fluctuated this season. They finished runners-up in their group, level on points with Barcelona, who tops the group, unsurprisingly, if they're runners-up. Starman Mehdi Taremi will be back from the Asian Cup, which will help the Dragons. To have him back will be a huge boon for the Portuguese side. Arsenal topped their first Champions League group since the 16-17 season, announced their return in some style, as they look to lift their first Champions League trophy in their history. The Gunners have picked up where they left off last season as they continue to challenge for the Premier League title. Their win over Liverpool and demolition of West Ham will fill the side with confidence, but we'll need to see off Burnley before they face Porto. Arsenal still have a very solid side with Saka continuing to shine, scoring 13 goals so far this season, and will be looking to cause issues for the Portuguese side. Pepe might have something to say about that though, as he's still kicking ball for the Portuguese side and will give anyone a lot of trouble. I mean, that man will put in a tackle with anyone, he does not care. Porto's rivals Sporting knocked Arsenal out of the Europa League last season, so Porto will be able to do one better and triumph in the Champions League. But Arsenal look like they'll be too much for the Portuguese side. I am going to have to give this one to the Gunners. Obviously, I watch a lot more English football than I do any other league in the world, so I know a lot more about them. But I don't think it takes an expert in the Premier League to tell you that Arsenal are playing well this season. They're looking very good, and I think they'll just be too much for Porto. Porto could get a shock result and progress over Arsenal, but I just think Arsenal have what it takes to take one over Porto, to be honest. I'm not saying Porto are a bad side because they're not, but I think they're weaker than Arsenal. That's all I can really say. And finally, Napoli versus Barcelona. Two domestic champions last season that haven't been enjoying the same level of domestic success this time around. Their respective title defences are not going well. The fall off from Napoli is far worse than Barcelona's though, so at least the Catalans have that over their opponents. The Italian side find themselves in 9th as they've really struggled to get going this season. The Catalans are doing better, currently 3rd, but are 10 points off Real Madrid, but are 10 points off Real at the top and 5 points behind second place Girona. Barca have even struggled to get out of the group, squeaking out level with Porto, but only topping the group on goal difference. Napoli finished runners-up in their group, but were never really in any trouble of dropping down. They performed alright, they did what they needed to do to stay in the group and progress, and they did it well, so fair play. Barca have been very inconsistent domestically this season, constantly swapping positions with Atleti, as well as being out of the cup and losing in the Supercopa final. Barca's defence has not been great this season, and Ter Stegen has only just returned from injury, conceding 3 on his return against Granada, but boy does he have a full head of hair now. Where'd he get that? Napoli have just been really disappointing this season. They look a shadow of the side they were under Spalletti. Their start under Rudi Garcia was predictably bad, and they've not been much better under Mazzarri either. Kvaratskhelia has been the driving force in attack whilst Osimhen has been away at AFCON, but he's blown hot and cold this season and hasn't really managed to capture that form that he was experiencing last season. I mean, he's by no means a bad player, he's still very, very good, but comparing this season's Kvaratskhelia to last season's Kvaratskhelia, they're two very different players. It just goes to show how important a manager is to the team, as Napoli look like a shadow of their former selves. Like, every player looks a shadow of their former selves. It's actually insane. The move to sack Spalletti was very, very interesting from the Napoli board, and I don't think anyone agreed with it, so you reap what you sow, I guess. As mentioned, both sides aren't playing well, but Barca are the better of the two sides at the moment. They're doing better domestically, and the players look a lot more certain when they're playing. They're also probably going to be filled with a sense of urgency and desire to do something for Xavi, who's going to resign at the end of the season. I think they're going to want to do well for him and give him a good send-off, because he is a Barcelona legend, so I think if the club want to play for him, then again, even without that, I think they are better than Napoli at the moment, so I don't think that's going to really influence their performance here, but yeah, it might play into it. But yeah, the same can't be said for Napoli. They almost feel hungover from the heights of last season and don't look like the Napoli side that lifted the Scudetto. So I can't see them progressing here. And honestly, it's a shame to see, really, because Italy is one of the most fun leagues to watch when it comes to the title race, because there are so many teams that can win it. Like, you've got Inter Milan, who are probably the dominant force in Italy at the moment, but you've also got AC Milan, Juventus, Napoli won it. You know, you've got quite a few sides that are up and about the title race, and it does make for a fun watch. So another side in there would just make it a lot more fun, but unfortunately it's not to be for the Naples team. But yeah, I'm backing Barcelona in this clash. They really are the best of the two here, but yeah, they're both in similar positions domestically. They're not defending their titles well, but in Europe, it's a whole different ball game, and I think Barcelona have this one. So yeah, those have been my Champions League round of 16 predictions. Again, I think Manchester City are probably going to win it. Let's be real, they are probably the best side still in the competition, and hey, if they're the first English side to do the double since 1980, fair enough. I've been O2GT, hope you have enjoyed. If you have any predictions of your own, please leave them down in the comments, and maybe comment who you think is going to win the Champions League overall. Yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.